This was not what I expected to see popping up on my timeline in the middle of a work day on a Friday. I never thought that this was going to happen today. Like, not even in the back of my head did I think that the Adam Lowry would be signing a 5-year extension worth $16.25 million with an annual average value of 3.25. I did not think that would happen today. And let's be honest, if you're a Jets fan, a fan of hockey, you didn't expect that to happen at all either. And this is a really interesting situation the Jets have put themselves into now by signing Adam Lowry now prior to, closer to or after July 1st, because obviously I haven't been able to really talk about it yet, but in my last video where I talked about the Jets protecting Dylan DeMello or Logan Stanley, I was going to, in my next video about the expansion draft, talk about how the Jets can go about protecting everybody theoretically without making a trade with their first overall pick like they did with Vegas to keep everyone they want without having them be selected and whatnot. And because of this contract being signed now, prior to it being signed on July 1st, as Adam Lowry goes into unrestricted free agency, now the Jets have to protect him. So that's the only aspect of this trade that I am not the biggest fan of, is because now that you're shovel day off, you have to look at the way you look at all your players you have. You got to look at your 7 forwards, your 3 defensemen, your goaltender, which doesn't really count because we all know it's going to be Hellebuck. But nonetheless, you now have to look at that and be like, okay, how am I going to be able to keep Kopp and keep Appleton and even potentially Harkins and other guys that shovel day off will obviously want to keep rather than lose going into the expansion draft for the Seattle Kraken. And if you're the Seattle Kraken, now I'm salivating because Winnipeg is now one of these teams that you're going to have to be able to take advantage of, similar to what Vegas was able to do in the last expansion draft. Because now that the Jets are going to have really good talent potentially available for exposure because they can't protect everyone they need to, the Jets could happen, or most likely, let's be honest, the Jets at this point will be making a trade because they didn't go out and make a big splash during the trade deadline to acquire a defenseman, which we all thought was a very likely possibility. And because of that, they have their first round pick. They have their most valuable asset, I would say, that every team wants as a hot commodity, and that is always a first round pick. And regardless of the draft class being weak or strong, you always want a first round pick if you're a team, trying to make a deal for any type of talent that's, relatively top 6 or, top pairing type guys. And because of that, the Jets are going to be able to maneuver themselves into a specific little point with Seattle and be able to make a deal most likely that involves, a certain player being selected by Seattle so that the Jets can keep their guys. Other than that, though, this contract is fantastic. I'm going to throw up Adam Lowry's advanced stats right now. Obviously, they aren't the greatest. He has been on a little bit of a decline the last couple of seasons. When Adam Lowry first broke into the NHL, he was an analytical darling on every side of on every area of the ice. And lately in his career, he has been pretty good and good in a lot of important areas, especially within the Jets system and just how they play. But regardless of that, there are, people concerned about the fact that this is a player who is getting up there in age, who has been with the organization for a long time, and it's also an interesting situation the Jets put themselves into because they allowed Brendan Tanev to walk a few years ago for a contract very similarly priced to this at 6 years. So, it's whether or not it's kind of interesting to me to see the Jets go down this path with Lowry. Maybe they were confident in the fact that another team would have offered a similar contract to one of the best third-line centers in the NHL. So if that's the situation, and that's why Cheveldayoff gave a little bit extra money and gave maybe like extra year onto what he would have liked, I'm okay with it because, frankly, Adam Lowry fits this team beautifully. He fits it like a glove, and without Adam Lowry, I feel like even though we have good prospects coming up, even like a David Gustafsson, who is potentially an Adam Lowry type player, I feel like Lowry is the identity of the bottom 6. When you look at that third line, there's been a rotating carousel of different type of players that have came into it over the last 6 years, I would really say, and even more closely around 4 to 5 when you look at it. And when you look at the amount of players that have changed, the chemistry that's been built, it's always been around Lowry. Lowry was amazing with Kopp and has been for a long time and brought the best out of each other. The Tanev obviously was a great experiment on there as well. Joel Armia at times looked great on that line as well with Lowry. Lowry brings out the best in a lot of good depth players. So keeping Lowry as one of the most underrated third-line centers in the NHL, in my opinion, at a contract cap hit that is really good, in my opinion, is a steal of a contract, and I don't think you can really argue that. Adam Lowry currently right now is making $2,916,000. That is his current cap hit right now. Next year, it's going to be 3.250. That's it. barely a raise at all. I honestly thought the Jets could be paying Lowry closer to 3, almost closer to 4. I thought that that's something he could command on the open market. I thought there might be a team willing to overpay, and I was not gonna lie, genuinely nervous a little bit that Lowry might be a guy that leaves. I know at 28 years old you might be thinking, oh, he could be declining, but let's be real. Even at $3 million, if Adam Lowry drops off within the last 2 years of that contract, even borderline 2.5, he's a decent trade commodity you can use at the deadline. There's going to be teams that are going to be interested in an Adam Lowry player always, especially just for depth, whatnot, at the deadline and just as an acquisition to acquire. So there's value in keeping Lowry on a contract like this. There's value in keeping a 28-year-old that's been with his club his entire career, who loves the city of Winnipeg and is proud to be a Winnipeg Jet. And I think that's an important thing to have as well on your team. I'm glad the Jets went out and paid Lowry. I'm a little, not concerned at all. I'm more intrigued by what the Jets are going to be doing now with the expansion draft coming up in the offseason. So we're going to have to be following that closely. So if you're a fan of the Winnipeg Jets, but more importantly, a fan of hockey regardless of the team you root for, definitely consider dropping a subscription as we continue to follow the information that will break coming into the offseason around the Winnipeg Jets and their expansion draft. With all that being said, let me know all your thoughts about the Adam Lowry contract down in the comment section below. If you're, like I said, if you're new to the channel or a fan of hockey regardless of the team you root for, definitely consider dropping a subscription. If you haven't already, turn on notifications. If you've been subscribed for however long you've been, follow all my socials down in the description below. Leave a comment always, guys. Love to hear you guys' opinions on that, especially on contracts like this. Let me know your thoughts. I'm really genuinely curious to see what the consensus is among fans on this deal. Like I said, leave a like on the video, subscribe, all that jazz, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace, love, and positivity as always, and go Jets, go.